Thank you, everyone, for subscribing to Infinitely Productions. If you have not done so, please click the bell and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy our content.
By day, rich and poor risked their money downtown at the world-famous racetrack. At night, the betting moved to opulent nightclubs called lake houses, early predecessors of the Las Vegas casinos. Lansky ran the gambling rooms in two of the finest lake houses, the Piping Rock and the Arrowhead Inn. There he fine-tuned the persona that he would use for his entire career: quiet, soft-spoken, and honest.
One thing a real dyed-in-the-wool gambler looks for is a fair gambling operation, and Meyer was always fair. He abhorred bust-out joints. That's where they rigged up roulette tables with battery operation, or phony dice, what they call top or bottom, or slice dice. Meyer would have none of it. He insisted on a fair, honest game, and that's how he built his reputation.
Not to mention a modest fortune. By his late 20s, hundreds of thousands of dollars were passing through Lansky's hands, and like many successful young businessmen, Lansky decided to settle down. In the spring of 1929, Lansky married a beautiful young Jewish woman, Anne Citron. Anne was a friend of Bugsy Siegel's girlfriend, Esther Krakauer. The couples double dated, and when the Lanskys got married on May 9th, Bugsy served as witness. At first, Meyer was happy with domestic life, and Anne was content, shopping along Fifth Avenue for their new home.
But the reality of his life, away at strange hours, not being able to confide in anybody, poisoned his ability to have any sort of decent personal relationship.
The birth of their first child, Buddy, only made the situation worse. Buddy suffered from cerebral palsy and could scarcely use his legs. Anne Lansky blamed her husband.
God punish you for doing the rotten criminal things you're doing, and he visited your sins upon our boy. Okay? Now, whether it's true or not, subconsciously, Meyer had a guilt complex.
Lansky was desperate to cure his son. He read medical journals. He rented an apartment in Boston so Buddy could be treated by a doctor there.
So you have this dichotomy. He's pouring his love and the positive side of his feelings and emotions into trying to make some redemption of his son's life. And then he's criminal.
One of the most powerful criminals in New York City. Unlike other gang leaders, Lansky was learning to avoid the vendettas and police attention brought on by mob violence. Instead, he consolidated his power with his own personal method: fairness.
In the underworld, a handshake from Meyer Lansky was worth more than the strongest contracts that a battery of lawyers could put together, dotting the I's and crossing the T's with the whereases and the therefores. He was a man whose word was good.
He also chose a lifestyle opposite to that of his partners. Ben Siegel was a consummate ladies' man. Lucky Luciano basked in his gangster reputation. But Lansky dressed and lived quietly. He was fastidious in his personal habits. His fedoras were always placed carefully on their hat stands, his pressed shirts on their monogrammed hangers in his closet.
I'm telling you, he was as low-key as they come, and shy and retiring. If you can visualize Meyer to be a shy and he was shy and retiring.
But when it came to doing business, Lansky could be just as ruthless as his murderous cronies. In 1931, Meyer helped his pal Lucky Luciano take over the New York mob. To do it, Lucky had to eliminate the two rival bosses at the time, Salvatore Maranzano and Joe the Boss Masseria. Lucky had no trouble bumping off Masseria, but Maranzano was a harder target. He trusted no one, especially not young Italian climbers like Luciano. That's where Lansky came in. Meyer's Jewish gunmen were the ones who turned up at Maranzano's office.
They were dispatched by Meyer Lansky. They said they were agents from the Treasury Department, and they were going to have to take a look at the books. And Mr. Maranzano came out and read Levine. Very close to Meyer Lansky was one of the gunmen who shot Maranzano. They also stabbed him, and they departed.
With the bloodshed over, Lucky Luciano was king of the hill, and standing beside the throne was Meyer Lansky. Excluded from the Italian mafia because he was Jewish, Lansky was now calling the shots in New York anyway, as Luciano's right-hand man. But just as Lansky had reached this pinnacle, his triumph was cut short. In 1933, Prohibition ended, and with it the stream of cash that bootlegging had delivered to the mob. And an even greater setback for Lansky came in 1936, when Lucky Luciano was found guilty of running prostitution rings in Manhattan. Lucky was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison.
When Luciano was put away, the New York police authorities mentioned 6 people that they thought might take over, and Lansky, whose name was misspelt, was mentioned.
Lansky was smart enough to say to his friend Ben Siegel, "You and I are going to be next."
Siegel headed west to Hollywood. Lansky headed south to scout out gambling opportunities in new and fertile terrain, Florida. What Lansky wanted was a location to set up his next generation of gambling houses, and he fixed his eye on a beach town just across the county line from Miami, the village of Hallandale. Officials there were especially forgiving of illegal betting. Well-run casinos would draw the tourists. The only problem, these games were already controlled by a local gangster. Lansky was going to need help muscling in, but he was having trouble recruiting new thugs from his old neighborhoods.
The era of the young, tough guy Jewish gunman is coming to an end. These young Jewish boys now are now going to be looking to go to law school, to go to medical school. So at that point, you can see that at every enterprise that he gets involved in, he's got to have an Italian partner.
The key partner was Vincent Alo, better known as Jimmy Blue Eyes. Alo made the Hallandale gambling impresarios an offer they couldn't refuse. He told them that whether they liked it or not, Meyer Lansky was taking over. Lansky built 3 casinos and put his brother Jake Lansky in charge. Then he smoothed all the ruffled feathers.
Anything that could be paid off with money, Meyer did not fear, because as long as you could pay off somebody or pay something somehow, that was satisfied him.
For a start, Lansky paid every single family in town $35 a week to tolerate the casinos and to stay away from them. At the time, Joseph Varon was the Hallandale city attorney. He too benefited from Meyer Lansky's generosity.
I'd go to a gambling joint, Saturday night was, so I'd play a little bit, and they see that whether I won or not, they'd give me a stack of chips.
Florida gambling boomed. Lansky maintained his Saratoga tradition of spectacular shows and top-quality food.
They were places that were patronized by the finest people and had seating capacity, some of them as high as 800 people. And some of the finest people of the United States patronized these places.
The trademark Lansky honesty brought in high rollers from all over the country.
And the $100 bills were that high. Oh, it was just incredible. I know one fellow by the name of Joe Mills.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.